You're watching Leeds Student Television. I'm Eliza, and today I'm going to be catching up with 3 of the candidates for the role of Leeds University Union Wellbeing Officer. Welcome, Avery, Livy and Ella. Thank you so much for joining me. So just to start off with a little introduction of who you are and why you're running for the role. We'll start with Ella.
Hi everyone, I am Ella. I am a second year liberal arts student and I want to be your wellbeing officer. I'm running for this role because I really care about students' wellbeing. I am a mental health healthcare assistant outside of university, and I want to channel what I know from there to help everybody at the university.
Thank you. And Livy?
Hi everyone, I'm Livy. I study Japanese and I'm also hoping to become a welfare officer for you. So basically I'm running for this role because I've recently gained a role on the new student advisory board for art, cultures and humanities, and also on the faculty of inclusion and equality. In those roles has really made me realise how many issues a lot of people have, and also to kind of represent the ADHD students like myself, I really want to bring that forward and gain more power so I can help kind of solve a lot of these problems that I'm seeing. Yeah.
That's fab. Thank you. And Aubrey?
My name's Avery Gonzalez. I'm a 4th year psychology student who's running to become your next wellbeing officer. Currently, I'm the welfare officer for Mind Matters, so I'd like to kind of carry on working with the welfare societies to bring as much support for students moving to the post-COVID scenarios that will happen hopefully in September.
That's fantastic, thank you. And we're just going to start pretty easy by sort of asking what some of your key manifesto points that you want to bring to the role. So I'll start again with Ella.
Okay, so my first manifesto point is to have all personal tutors and all module leaders mental health first aid trained. Now, personal tutors and module leaders are our first call of response. In my opinion, it is therefore fundamental that they are mental health first aid trained. Most, I assume, will probably be physical first aid trained, so it seems really odd that we don't have the same priority for mental health. Secondly, I want to run timetabled support sessions for every student at the beginning of each term. These will include where support is, how to access support, and why asking for support is never taboo. Also, I think it's just going to be like a really nice way to get to know our peers outside of an academic setting. Finally, I want a COVID secure support plan, which includes safe spaces like libraries to remain open on campus, the union helping with housing and renting concerns, mid-module assessments scrapped, and extensions easily provided.
Fantastic, thank you. And Ella, oh no, I've just done Ella, I apologise. Livy.
Yeah, so my main kind of mantra for all of this is prevention rather than plasters. And for me, that just means I want to stop these issues from happening in the first place, such as the mental health crisis, which is obviously such a big thing right now. So my idea for that is, at the moment, the counselling service seems quite specific and situational. A lot of these things are because something has happened, not for a long time, like a long-term mental illness, for example. So what I would like to do is kind of reroute the way that we look at it and instead kind of offer, at the very minimum, counselling training for a lot of students, particularly those that want to work in a mental health environment, because that will help them obviously get used to patient facing in a way. And that way we could set up kind of a continuous appointment kind of system rather than just a drop-in that you don't really continue. My second point is mostly for people that are neurodivergent. A lot of people have backgrounds where they haven't been diagnosed with a lot of these issues, and then they can't actually access any of the support. And it's incredibly hard to pursue a diagnosis when you're an adult sometimes. The current waiting list on the NHS is 2 years, by which point your degree is almost completely over for a lot of people. So I would like to try and provide a route in which people can get a diagnosis a lot quicker and then access the support. And my third point is, obviously, after COVID has settled down and we can all start going out again, I would really like to try and make Leeds safer. I hear so much about issues happening with Hyde Park, so I would really like to set up kind of like a walking home buddy system where people are empowered to make choices and be able to contact people and say, I've been out late at the library, I've been to Fruity, can you come walk home with me if we live together, and hopefully that will just make people feel safer and be able to, you know, maybe prevent a lot of the minor crimes.
Perfect, thank you. And Avery?
Yeah, I'm just going to start with a rhetorical question. So if you were in crisis, or your friend was, would you know where to go? The complexity to find all the mental health services within the university and the student union is perhaps one of the most complicated things to do as a student who is in need of support straight away. The way I envision this is to create a visual representation of a one-stop shop where all the services will be available to you. I named it the Student Mental Health Experience. Now, as the only man to be running for the wellbeing position, I want to represent all the men here at LUU. Speaking up about how you feel is perhaps one of the most complicated things to do. So I want to launch a brand new partnership with Mentality, a male mental health awareness organisation, to bring it into sports, societies, dance and performing arts. This way is they're interactive, they engage with one another, and I want to provide like a safe environment for them to speak up about how they feel. Lastly, it's the inclusive student community. I want every student to feel part of LUU. I firstly want to continue the work the current Welfare Officer Sophia is doing on tackling sexual violence within the university. I want to understand further the BAME community in accessing like mental health services by partnering up with Together All, to run like a series of campaigns to kind of like understand the way that they're interacting with the services. Lastly, I'd like to bring a complete team of culturally competent counsellors. This includes a BAME, a trans counsellor, and an international speaking counsellor. This would be Mandarin. This would facilitate the engagement of the students to be at ease in understanding themselves a little bit better.
Okay, that's fantastic. Thank you all three for that. So we put out a call for students to submit questions which are specific to the role. So these are ones which students have submitted and would like to hear your response to. The first question is, will you or would you hold the university to account over the student mental health crisis, and how would you do so? So I'll start again with Ella.
Would I hold the university to account? I don't think they can be held fully to account. It's at a government basis, but I can tell you what the university can do is they can be empathetic. And this relates back to a letter written by a Lancaster head teacher to all parents and all pupils saying, I am so sorry for your situation right now. It's rubbish. But I just want to let you know that you're doing a fantastic job. Right now, we are in a pandemic and everybody is struggling, but I think you are doing amazing. That's being empathetic, it's holding space, it's an emotional level of understanding, saying you are doing great and I'm so sorry for your situation and I cannot change it. Because most of the time, the university cannot change the situation and it's not their fault. However, they need to be open about that, the fact that they can't change it. The difference of empathy is sympathy, and it's trying to silver line a situation and say, I'm sorry this is the case, but at least this and at least that. And it actually creates disconnect as opposed to connect. When you're empathetic with someone, it shows that you are holding up understanding and extremely empathetic with a student situation. So even if a university cannot change the situation for students right now, they could be empathetic.
That's fantastic, thank you. And Livy, your response to the question?
Yeah, first and foremost, I definitely agree with a lot of what Ella has said. I would say that I would hold the university a lot more to account though, because my opinion is that COVID did not cause the mental health crisis. The mental health crisis was already existed, and it was already just becoming progressively worse and worse. And COVID has just completely changed things and completely, you know, on a scale, just completely whacked it off. And yeah, I do think a lot of that is somewhat to do with the university, and it's just due to a lot of problems, especially in lack of communication. For example, with students with anxiety, for example, the way that they communicate with a lot of uncertainty, that just makes it worse. And I am in kind of a unique position where I can tell you for a fact that the university definitely does care, and they are putting considerations into this thing, but they're just not clear about it. And they really need to work more on the way that they communicate with students and just the way they think about how they're going to respond to things, because communication is just so important. Even just a simple word choice can mean anything and everything to students. And they really need to step up and put more consideration into mental well-being, because you're not going to do well academically if you're suffering so much because of a mental thing. It's fundamental. So yeah, I definitely would hold them to quite a bit of account, even if they're not controlling the actual situation.
Thank you. And Aubrey, your response?
Yeah, I agree with Levi. I think we should hold the university a little bit more accountable to the way that students have been engaging with their own circumstances within COVID. Again, like the communication hasn't been as transparent as it could have potentially been. A lot of the times they've just kind of left in the abyss, waiting and waiting and waiting just a little bit longer to see what the university is going to be doing for them. Students have spent a lot of money to come here. They're passionate about what they study. And a lot of the times their own surrounding to cope with the circumstances has not been the best. I want to say that the university, and along other universities, that they have tried to be as empathetic, like Ella pointed out, but they haven't done this transparently. They've kind of held a little bit back just because they don't know what's going to happen in the future. So what I'd like to do is, work with the university and the student union to kind of allow the students to know that they're not left alone. They're together.
Absolutely, thank you. This is another question. So, do you feel that the availability of mental health services matches the current demand for support amongst students? If not, what more can be done? And I know this might sort of reiterate some things that you already said in your manifesto points, but just sort of more specifically, you can answer the question. Ella, if you need me to repeat it at any time, just let me know.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a statistic, and this is from a national union of students. So only 20% of students have sought after mental health support. You want to know why? Because going forward, when it's not compulsive to go, when you don't have to go, when you don't know who's going to go there, when you're online, when it's an anxious environment, sometimes embarrassing, aren't going to want to access support if it's not compulsory. This situation is a crisis. It's a crisis because over 52% of students right now are struggling with their mental health because of a pandemic. That's over half of students. It's a crisis, and this situation needs to be viewed as a crisis. I run something called the Pandemic Podcast. I speak to all different types of students about how they're doing right now, and most of them said that they don't feel like the university is viewing it as a crisis. Yes, we have wellbeing webinars. Yes, we do have occasional support sessions, but they are something which students have to go out and seek. And if only 20% of students are seeking them, we need to bring the support to them. And this is where my point of having timetable support sessions for every student at the beginning of term is so important. What you do, you get up your computer, you go on a screen share, you go onto Minerva, you show how to clearly access support and why it's important, and the different support options which are available. We need to bring the support to students. We have to act like this is a crisis, and we need to make sure they know where support is. That's how you make the communication better, is if you bring it to students, because if 20% are only accessing support, we have to bring it to them.
Thank you. And Livy, your response?
Yeah, again, I kind of echo that it's quite difficult to get the support. It can be quite tedious. Just going from my own personal experience with the system, I'm aware that it has changed slightly since I was in first year, but I tried so hard to get a counselling appointment. I desperately needed it. I was in such a bad place during first year, and it was so difficult. I didn't even get one. I tried for weeks, having emails going back and forth. I went in person. They told me that wasn't good enough. It can be, if you're trying to make that step proactively, that kind of suggests that you really do need that kind of support. And when they make it so hard to get, obviously, sometimes, especially if you have something like depression, you're just going to give up. It's a lack of energy, and it takes a lot to try and make that step. And even now, I was looking on the form yesterday, just the self-referral form, and it's 25 questions of bureaucracy kind of things about your year and your student number. I don't understand why it needs to be so complex. Just to get that support, because people will just get tired halfway through that form. So I would definitely like to restructure the way that that works, and again, make it way more accessible, not hidden behind like 4 tabs on the Uni of Leeds website. But my main idea for kind of upping the actual provision would be, instead of just like signposting people places and just offering limited sessions, I really want to offer training for just normal students to become volunteer counsellors, which is a completely legitimate practice that people can do with the right kind of course. In a dream world, if I had enough budget to do it, I would really love to pay these people to do that as kind of like a part-time job setup. But I still think even just as a volunteer, it could also just offer invaluable experience from like a CV perspective, as well as, if you are wanting to go into mental health or anything along those fields, just talking to patients or customers, developing those kind of skills. And I would like that system to be almost a bit like the Leeds language exchange, where you can just simply go on a website and say, contact this person, and you can choose who you want to talk to. So that would also allow for people from different backgrounds, so people could talk to people of their culture, and maybe just have a setup where they can just talk to this person. They can arrange maybe like a weekly meeting, so they're not just having to repeat themselves on a crisis resource, because I think there's way too much emphasis on like a situational mental health, or just full-on crisis mode, rather than people that have just got a long-term condition. I would like to prevent that long-term condition from becoming very severe to the point where it needs crisis.
Thank you, that's great. And Aubrey?
Yeah, this reinforces one of my manifesto points. I believe the university and student union, they haven't done enough to make mental health services visible to all the students. One of their strategic missions is to make LeadLUU a digital-first union by 2022. This has to incorporate a better mental health support system where students are not left in the unknown. A way to increase the funding is by being as transparent with the university and all the university students. This way, the university will be able to clarify themselves and know exactly how many students are going through all the services that are available to them. This can only happen if they know what services are available to them. I want to improve the relationship between the GP services. This way, it would make it a little bit easier to access counselling for all those students that are in need of immediate support. Again, partner up with external companies and partner up with welfare societies to make the student experience a little bit more accessible. Like student psychology, one of the things that I find that is most successful through some research is that as people approach a service, it's better to actually partner up with something else, a secondary intervention. So by allowing students to access counselling and then partner up with, let's say, mentality to support their mental health experience if they're engaging in their sport, and to partner up with a welfare society that's specific to their needs. I believe this will be the best way to kind of combat the lack of resources that students are able to access.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. So this is nearing the last question, but how would you support students' physical health and safety after a year which has obviously been detrimental to both?
How would I support students' physical health? I think it comes with partnering with the societies. Something which I wanted to do as well is like for support sessions was have like society tailored support sessions. So working with them to make sure like they understand, like it's a really basic training. It's not like mental health first aid. It's they understand sort of like how to take care of an individual. Obviously societies are overseeing so many people, so it's really important that they themselves feel like they can support students. Even like really simple things like, you know, how many hours of sleep are you meant to get a night? Like, what does meditation do to your mental health? Like, how can you just make sure that people are feeling like okay, not feeling like 100% all of the time? That's not their responsibility. They shouldn't have capture, but can you see that anyone's withdrawing slightly, like just looking for signs within them? I don't think that we personally can go around and make sure every single person is like at their physical best, but we need to look to see who maybe can do that, and society do have that power. So if we tailored support sessions for societies, made sure they knew how to take care of the individual in terms of like their physical health, what could they speak about in their like within their society, what could they put out, what could they put out on their social media. That's a really good way of like being able to talk to students on like a more colloquial basis through the society. So tailored support sessions for societies, or hopefully we can introduce wellbeing training to make sure they know how to take care of the individual's physical health.
Fantastic, thank you. And Livy?
Yeah, on maybe like a more minor level, I would definitely like to promote more sport, especially for people that aren't sporty. So I would like to make it, I know there's already a society for that, but I'd like to make it quite accessible for people that feel a bit embarrassed maybe about going to an actual sports society, but just want to be a bit more physically active, let's say. I would also really like to offer some sort of like guided walk sort of situation, especially for incoming freshers and the current first years that are going into second year who haven't really had that full Leeds experience. Especially I think it could be quite helpful if we point out maybe like this area can be quite dangerous at night, for example, so maybe this is a better way to walk, or if you're going to this area, because these people, especially probably won't have that experience from learned experience, because people haven't experienced a night out in Leeds from that sort of group as well. And I think it would be quite a good opportunity to maybe make friends that a lot of people haven't had the chance to do in person. So obviously, COVID willing, that would be quite important to me. And yeah, one of my major campaign ideas is to offer this sort of walking home together service, which in some senses, I've seen a bit of discourse about this, but I think if we put it into the students' hands and allow them the choice, I think that it could be quite empowering. So I'm kind of thinking, if I can, I would love to make a sort of app situation, which in a sense a bit like Tinder, where you can maybe like swipe through people and say, and maybe talk to them and say, oh, we're going to be in the library at the same point, can we walk home together? Or I'm waiting outside of here, I want to go to Hyde Park. And that would involve having a student ID number, so everything would be completely traceable to that person. And I was also thinking maybe it could have kind of like an Uber system where you can do like an alert, or like some sort of GPS tracking if you were feeling unsafe at all. So I just really want to reinforce the idea of staying safe at night, especially when we go back to being able to go out at night properly. You know, Leeds has such a strong connection to the Reclaim the Night movement. I mean, it originated in Leeds, and I feel like it's really important to just keep going with that and to keep pushing the message and just try and make people feel safer, but putting it into the students' hands. Especially, you know, a lot of people, they don't want to be patronized and be like escorted. So I think it would be quite nice if maybe like you could just walk home with, like, if you're a girl and you don't want to be patronized by walking home with a lad, but you still feel a bit unsafe, you could walk home with another group of girls, for example, if you're going to the same area, and just feel a lot safer on your own terms, as well as just allowing the chance maybe to make a new friend if you wanted to. You know, some people just don't like walking on their own for social reasons. So yeah, I just really want to make people feel a lot safer and give them the power themselves to do that, especially in the sort of Hyde Park, Headingley areas.
That's fantastic, thank you. And Avery?
Yeah, here I just believe that it's all to do with visibility, more visibility and visibility. Basically, I want to regain some sort of normality here at LUU. We need to bring hope to the student that all the services, societies and communities within Leeds are going to be ready to invite students back. One of the ideas that I have is basically to partner with LSTV and Leeds Student Television and Variety to create engaging videos of all the societies through like a wellness mindset. Students like my brother's a fresher, I know exactly what they're feeling. They're isolated. They haven't had the full university experience that many of us have. I want to allow that experience to kind of be regained post-COVID scenarios. I want to make it everything possible to be accessible to the student. A lot of times you'll scroll through the Student Union website and you look through societies, you may actually enjoy one, but you don't know the culture behind that society. So if we can create visible and engaging videos to basically capture the society's ethos and values of who they are, how they were able to gain friends, sharing the same passions as others, this would allow like a safe environment for students to hopefully open up about their own personal circumstances, their own mental well-being in a safe environment, in a group that they can share. That's what I'd like to do moving forward.
That's fantastic. Thank you, all three of you. That sort of concludes the questions related to the Wellbeing Officer submitted by students. I've just got one final question for you, which is much more relaxed and less interrogative. When the current lockdown restrictions are over and COVID restrictions more generally, what is one of the first things you want to do up in Leeds?
Up in Leeds, first thing I want to do up in Leeds, so I was, when I first joined, I had the strikes, and then I had COVID happen. So I've only had really a term up at Leeds. I've been living down in Southampton this whole time during this year. So I would really love to travel around Leeds. It's got such beautiful scenery, like the Yorkshire Dales. And yeah, I would just really like to get to know the surrounding area. Travel is part of my life, and the fact that it's been taken away from me, it's just, yeah. So I would love to travel, get to know the area, and really settle in, and allow it to try and feel a bit more like home, because definitely for me, I think second years will also realise that with the strikes and with like the pandemic, I've really found Leeds hard to call home. So getting to know the area, travelling around it more, and actually being able to call it home would be really nice.
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable. It's really nice. Livy?
I mean, well, first of all, catch me in Fruity, the second I've missed it so much. But yeah, Fruity, Trinity shopping spree definitely is gonna happen. But yeah, I would just really love to walk around Leeds some more, because even though I was quite lucky to have a normal freshers year, I didn't really see a lot of Leeds, and I want to see more of it. And you know, I never got the chance to have an Otley run either, and so I feel like I just owe it to myself to do it, just to celebrate everything once it's safe to do so. So maybe that's slightly a selfish one, but I'm really looking forward to hopefully doing that.
Yeah, I think many people will probably join you with that one. And Avery?
Yeah, it goes a little bit with Livy's point. All I fancy doing right now is just having a dance. That's going to a club. I mean, starting university, I've been part of the Salsa Society, and just getting to dance with different people has just been absolutely beautiful. That kind of like being taken away through COVID has meant that, I mean, I've danced at home, but it's not the same. It's not the same environment. All I want to do is just dance, just somewhere that I can just move, have some beautiful music around, and just enjoy it.
Yeah, I think everyone's in need of a bit of a boogie. Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for joining me. I wish you all the best of luck in your campaign, and obviously voting, for people who are watching, opens between the 1st of March until the 4th, with results on the 5th. So head over to the LeadLUU website, or LUU website /LeadLUU if you're interested and want to find out more information about that. But apart from that, thank you all very much for joining me.
You're watching Leeds Student Television. I'm Millie, and today I'm going to be talking to some of the candidates for the role of Wellbeing Officer at Leeds University Union. So if you guys want to introduce yourself, Holly?
Yeah, hi guys, my name is Holly. I'm currently doing a master's in religion, politics and society, and I did my undergrad at Leeds as well, so I'm in my 4th year of living in Leeds. I'm running because, I mean, the main reason that I've been a student that struggled with my mental health, and in my time at Leeds, I managed to turn that into something that was fairly productive. I got involved in the welfare societies. I'm the current welfare rep on the activities exec, and I think I've seen students struggle, and I've seen them struggle in ways that are completely preventative. I've seen them struggle in ways that just weren't necessary, and I kind of want to make that change.
Nice, thank you. Brittany?
Hi, I'm Britt, so I'm a 3rd year law student at the minute. I'm also the welfare officer for the Women's Rugby League sports team. The reason I'm running for this is mainly due to like personal experience. So I kind of have had access to like the wellbeing support within the university, and I know what they do well and kind of where it's lacking. So I kind of want to make those changes. I've had a pretty good time at Leeds, but there are some things that I know would improve it, for not just for myself, but for other people. And I want to make sure those changes are implemented. I've kind of, with being the welfare officer for the sports team, I've noticed how important wellbeing is across different kind of boards. So not just mental health in general, but like how it's impacted in like a variant of ways. So yeah, I want to make the changes. I've had that experience, and I'm kind of ready to make the changes too.
Nice, thank you. Jess?
Hi, I'm Jess Parker. I'm a third year zoology student, and I'm running for Wellbeing Officer due to my absolute love of helping other people. I volunteered in charities throughout my whole time at Leeds, and I'm currently the team leader for Leeds Uni Boob Team, which is a supporter of Copperfield. We represent them on campus, and Copperfield is a breast cancer awareness charity. So my love for educating and helping other people stems from my volunteering that I've experienced at Leeds, and I would just absolutely love to continue it and keep everyone going.
Thank you. And Lottie?
Hi, I'm Lottie. So I studied English, Lit and Language, and I'm the current community officer at Leeds University Union. So I'm rerunning to be the Wellbeing Officer for next year, because I think there are so many things that I would have liked to have changed this year if it wasn't for the COVID pandemic and having to respond to that. I think wellbeing is one of those roles that encompasses so many different things. So tackling the wellbeing support that's offered and where there are gaps in provisions there, but also things like housing problems, and there's some issues with housing that I really want to continue work on. I also really want to focus on student safety and the ways that can impact wellbeing, and use LUU's platform to lobby nationally for a lot of issues as well.
Nice, thank you. And Harriet?
Hi everyone, I'm Harriet and I'm a history student in my second year now. And I'm running very similar to what Jess said, because I want to make a difference. I love helping other people. And again, I've been involved in a lot of volunteer work at Leeds Uni so far. So I'm a peer mentor, and I'm also president of Students for Sensible Drug Policy. And it was in this latter role that really got me involved with union reform, working with Sophia, who's our current welfare officer, and also the head of student support on the university side. And it really gave me an insight into how the university works and how I'd like to reform things. So yeah.
Nice, thanks guys. I hope that wasn't too nerve-wracking. I'm going to go into the second question now. If elected, what would be your top 3 priorities, or what are your key manifesto points? So Holly, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so in terms of my manifesto, I guess I'll start with kind of my key headlines and go into more detail if that's okay. So kind of the headings for what I want to do is lobby for inclusive mental health provision. I want to prioritise safety. I want to increase funding, and I want to create awareness for every student. So specifically looking at inclusivity, I want to introduce targeted campaigns at LGBTQIA+ issues. I want to campaign for culturally competent welfare provision within the union, making sure that staff and resources are representative actually of our student body. I want to kind of promote and continue the work that was done on the Headingley Stadium alleyway. I want to expand it to the rest of Leeds, basically making sure that kind of sexual assault hotspots don't exist anymore in Leeds, things like blighting, increased CCTV, working with local government, increasing funding towards LUU wellbeing. I specifically want to look at putting research and reform into student mental health as we come out of lockdown, adapting to the issues that are going to arise kind of out of COVID. We're seeing a lot of increased isolation and loneliness among students. We're going to have a whole generation of students coming to university who maybe don't have the experience of kind of going out and nightlife, so raising awareness around sensible alcohol and drug use as well. And finally, I want to see a kind of wellbeing master list signposting students to wellbeing services in every module Minerva space and every module handbook at the university.
Nice, thank you.
So with the Wellbeing Officer, I kind of want to make a point of how wellbeing kind of goes beyond purely focusing on just mental health. So how wellbeing is included in societies. So my key 3 points regarding that are kind of focusing on support for victims of sexual assault, and increasing participation in female sports, and kind of preparing for the mental impact of COVID and how that's going to affect university. So the first point, kind of my biggest point really, is about supporting victims of sexual assault. And I know this year Sophia has put in a lot of work into kind of lobbying this with the university and within the union, and I want to make sure I can kind of follow on from that. So my kind of key ideas are kind of demanding a compulsory e-learning module about consent across the university before even like you can start your course. So it's kind of making sure that people have an awareness of what consent is, because I really think at the moment especially there's not really enough awareness about what real consent is. So that's definitely something that should be implemented. I also want to have a pressure-free peer support group with the uni for people who have been victims of assault. This is kind of because through personal experience, I know that getting told to go to counselling or similar sort of things, it is a lot of pressure. And sometimes you kind of want to talk to someone that has had similar experiences with the no pressure of being told what you should do from that. And with this position, that would mean that I would have the funding and support to do this safely. So I've already been in talks with Katie Hughes previously about how we could do this, but as a student, I didn't have the funding or the resources to do it. So I really want to make sure I can do that. For the increasing female participation in sport, this is something that a lot of sporting societies specifically have fed back. So at the moment, there kind of is a focus on male sports, and I think by working with the activities officer, it would increase a lot more female sport. And I know that from my own experience, joining the sports team has like made a massive impact to my university time. So this would be through making sure they're properly resourced, properly highlighted and properly publicised, and that they're treated equally to the men's game. And post-COVID, that the accessibility to sports venues is the same as it is for men. Kind of finally, it's looking at the mental impact of COVID and how we can prepare for the potential influx of students when counselling services, for example, are available in person. So I want to do this by having an online anonymous service where you can talk to a volunteer or a counsellor kind of before having to go through the waiting list. So this would mean that someone can get advice about where to go, or like just more of a direction than just a set list of this is the services we have, kind of find your way through it yourself. So it's to make sure that someone kind of points you in the right direction. And I also think that retaining access to like online seminars and lectures is really important as well, as a lot of people are probably going to be really anxious about going back into normal life. So I think it's really important to kind of prepare for making sure that it's more of a prevention method rather than kind of once something gets bad, kind of dealing with it then. So like how we can prepare for that and making sure that the resources are available for if there is an influx in students who need access to these things. So yeah, they're the kind of the 3 key points. And yeah, I want to expand on the meaning of wellbeing and how it goes beyond looking specifically at mental health and how it is impacted in so many different ways as well.
Nice, yeah. Thank you. And Jess?
Hi, yeah. So my first out of my 3 key points of this campaign is to bring sexual health and wellbeing services to students. Currently, I believe that LeadLUU is not providing enough, it's not accessible enough to get sexual health support. So I would like to provide more free contraception, and also free STI testing, and set up a weekly STI clinic at the union where you can go and either take your test home, do it at home, or do it at the union. But yeah, I really want to focus on improving sexual health and wellbeing services, as I've spoken to so many students who feel like they don't know where to go to get testing, and a lot of people aren't aware of the contraceptive options that the union offers, and I just really want to make sure that we are putting it right in front of students, that they don't have to go out and search for sexual health support. Another key point of my manifesto is compulsory mental health training for personal tutors at the university. Personal tutors in my faculty anyway had to have optional mental health training, and I believe that it should be absolutely mandatory for all personal tutors across the university to be trained in mental health, so they know how to talk to their students and treat them effectively, or pass them on to the right people, and not just send them a bunch of links. Like, we want direct support. And my final point is to provide a lovely safe space in Common Ground once a week where people can come and chat and hang out and meet new people, but also provide help and support. So provide a professional from the union to be there, and if anyone has any issues with their well-being, their health, mental health, physical health, sexual health, they can go and speak to a professional whilst also in a really calm and chill environment and having a coffee. And yeah, just maybe have themes. So maybe a pet therapy theme week or a board game themed week. Keep it interesting and keep it going so that people feel like there's somewhere to go for them every week to look after their mental health. So those are the 3 reasons why I'm running for Wellbeing Officer. And you can find out more about the details on my candidate statement.
Great, thank you. And Lottie.
Thank you. Yeah, so my first manifesto point is about housing. And basically I want to increase the flexibility and fairness and affordability of student housing, both in university accommodation and the private sector. So I think this year has really been shown how inflexible and problematic student housing is compared to the rights that normal tenants have. So that would be lobbying for legislation to introduce break clauses like students are given in Scotland, so that students are able to give notice on their properties, whether that's for like a situation like this where you are no longer in your property and you need to get out of it and don't need to be paying rent for a room that you're not using, or whether it's you've got a really horrible student room and have been promised loads of things about the house that haven't been delivered. And I think that housing really directly impacts well-being as well. I know that it really did for me in 2 of my years at uni. So that's my housing point. My second point is a COVID recovery plan for our wellbeing services. So at the moment, there's quite a lot of students who we know and we're worried about aren't accessing the service, whether that's because they are restricted at home in their home environment and not able to access online freely, or they're just not aware of it. So I want to make sure that we've got enough investment in our front-facing services so that if a student turns up at our wellbeing, drop into our advice team, they're seen on the same day. And with this, I really want to focus on bridging that gap between students who don't feel like they have a mental health issue, they don't feel like they're really unwell, but knowing that we can still provide that emotional support early on, because I think that's really crucial in stopping it getting to that later crisis point. And I think that's really critical for first years this year who might not have had the same interaction with the university and been quite distant from the university compared to a normal year. And then my final point is student safety. So I want the university to pay for an app for every student that can get them instant help and instant attention of services. So whether they're on campus somewhere in the city, in Hyde Park near their student house, I want a safety app and I want the university to invest in this. I also want to use the union's platform to lobby for legislation against street harassment, because I think this is something that's been really increased during the lockdown periods, and I've definitely noticed it from like when I've been going on my daily walk in lockdown around Hyde Park. I think it's something that's become really like a big problem, and I think that every student should feel safe and comfortable where they live. So yeah, those are my 3 manifesto points.
Great, thank you. And Harriet.
So my manifesto effectively centres around the idea that we have £41 million currently spent on student support by the university, which is equal to just over £1,000 per student per year. And yet some students still don't get emails answered, and there are massive discrepancies in terms of the support between each faculty. So addressing mental health issues, it's already been mentioned that mental health has been hugely impacted by COVID, and we need to be aware of more students dealing with bereavement. Anxiety cases have skyrocketed. But similarly, also physical issues like long COVID are things we need to be aware of. So I want to create an honest, integrated mental health system. So instead of simply referring students to self-help resources or external services like Leeds Student Medical Practice or Marketplace Leeds, I want the university and the union to take responsibility of their duty of care to students. So this will include prioritising funding to increase the student counselling capacity, but underpinning this with consistent early intervention support, similar to what Lottie was saying. So instead of allowing cases to get serious enough, we would have buddy systems and peer listening groups for every student. And again, this would be consistent across the faculties and something that faculties would have to enforce. I want to prioritise funding for mental health societies, such as Mind Matters, and they do really a critical job across the union and across for university students, but I don't feel like they're fully supported as they could be. Secondly, I want to work on the issue of student housing. As going forward in the union, we're not going to have a community officer anymore, so it'll sort of come under the role of the wellbeing officer. I want to increase support for rent strikers, which again has really come to the forefront this year. And to educate students on their rights and really empower them against landlords, because I think there's a serious imbalance of power between students and student landlords. And so working with the housing union, ACORN, we would advise students and set up a uni-wide education campaign, particularly aimed at first year and international students, so they don't fall into the pitfalls of things like deposits getting stolen or holding fees, which are illegal anyway. And again, I think we could set up a sort of informal buddy system here so that first year students could talk to a second year student or third year student about housing and when they got their house. I know that it was something in first year that I really struggled with, the pressure to find a house and to find a group of friends straight away. And lastly, I want to focus on addressing student drug use. It's very close to me as president of Student Responsible Drug Policy. I want to continue the harm reduction policies that we've set up with the union and university, as Leeds is reported to have the highest percentage of students using drugs in the country. So we need to lose the stigma here and just address the issues head on. So that would include getting the free drug testing kits in the union that we voted for back in December 2019. I'm currently working with Sophia, the welfare officer, to set up a steering group so that students can inform drug policies. And I want to really be mindful of how drug use has changed due to COVID and what the long and short-term effects of this will be. So working with organisations like Neurosite who collect data on student drug use.
Well, thanks guys. I'm going to go into more of your specific candidate questions now. The first one is, will you hold the university to account over the student mental health crisis?
Yeah, I think definitely the university and the union have got a part to play in the current student mental health crisis. I think it's something that needs to be taken as seriously as possible. I think that a lot of the time, in terms of kind of these bigger organisations, we're seeing university as a transitionary period. You see it in housing and mental health provision. Oh, it's okay because they're only going to be students for a few years and then they're going to move on. It's fine. But we need to start with kind of preventative measures more than just reactionary. I don't want to see students needing emergency mental health provision. I don't want students to get to that point. I've been at that point and it's not great. And at least in kind of my experience, there are ways you can prevent it. I kind of want to get rid of this echo chamber that we've got kind of within the university provision of like, go for a walk, eat a vegetable, here's a forum that you can chat to. Wellbeing is not one size fits all, and we need to stop acting like it is. And I think if elected wellbeing officer, that's definitely where I'd start.
Well, thank you. And Britt?
Yeah, so I think university definitely needs to be held accountable for this, especially given that students seem to in the pandemic have been like forgotten about by the government. I think because of that as well, the university should have kind of played a bigger role in supporting students. So kind of throughout this year, there's been like, there's obviously been a change to how university itself works. So with things being online, there's not really been like support for people who are kind of like not ready for the change. And obviously with like everyone's mental health is kind of, I guess it's not as stable as before. So I think the university really needs to be held accountable for, like, for example, for the halls, encouraging people to come back to halls. It's not only financial concern, like it's not only just mental health, there's like financial concerns as well that the uni needs to be held accountable for. And also with everything moved online, the kind of access to the resources that students have. So I'm currently writing my dissertation, and unless I like purchase all the books, you can't really access the same things, and there needs to be more support by the uni for people who can't come and like physically access the libraries. Yeah, I think there's a lot that the university need to acknowledge and like kind of make sure that they're supporting students and kind of more flexible with like deadlines, because not everyone has the same circumstances. Like if you live at home and you live in a big house, maybe it's harder for you to do work, or maybe you have care duties, and the uni have kind of assumed that everyone can kind of adapt to the same circumstances. And I think there's like a lack of awareness of how different everyone's circumstances are at the moment. So uni kind of needs to do more to be like adaptable to different people and like their circumstances, and like kind of make sure their support is out there for people who aren't in the best circumstances to work at the moment. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. And Jess.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sorry, will you hold the university to account over the student mental health crisis?
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. I personally attended a wellbeing session called APC of Managing Anxiety, and it was really useful, but it was very, very broad. And I've noticed that they're putting on these wellbeing webinars, but I think they need to be more regular, and they need to provide more personal support, like direct students to more personal support, and really, really enforce that they can direct people to personal support. So I think definitely hold them accountable. They've tried, but I think there needs to be more pushing and more regular support for sure. I mean, self-help resources are great, and the webinars that they have put on, as I say, will be useful, but definitely needs to be more detailed, and yeah, definitely need to be held accountable.
Great, thank you. And Lottie.
Yeah, definitely. I think the university has a massive part to play in this recovery from the period that we've just been through, and we're really anticipating a spike in students who are experiencing mental health issues for the first time, or whose have got worsened, whose have worsened. And I think the university really needs to invest in its services so that that direct same day support is available, so that a student comes with an issue, no matter whether they're at a crisis point or whether they're starting to feel like things are getting overwhelming. I think there needs to always be that option that students can speak to someone about their concerns, and they're always validated to be able to do that. I think that's the university has a big role to play in taking away those barriers, and particularly where first year students, for example, this year in halls might not have been able to like see the services that have been offered to them and have been a bit distanced away. I think that transition from first year to second year is one of the hardest in university, and we see students struggling quite a lot in the first term of their second year. So I think there's a big part to play in making sure though that specific cohort are supported after the experience they've had this year, and particularly some of them might have had been in halls quite isolated on their own if they're currently there in this period, for example. And I also think that there needs to be direct support for PGR students and master's students as well, who might only be here for a year. I think they're a group that quite often get overlooked. But yeah, I think the university definitely has a massive part to play in its response.
Great, thank you. And Harriet.
So the Vice-Chancellor, Simone, was asked about the student mental health crisis during the Meet the Vice-Chancellor event back in semester 1, and I was quite disappointed by her response, which was effectively to fall back on the existing structures that we've had in place since before the pandemic. So like the drop-in sessions in the union, she also mentioned the wellbeing sessions that have been put on. And I definitely agree with what's been said, that wellbeing sessions are not really a substitute for targeted mental health support. I think they're great for some people, but in the people who genuinely need support, people are often too stressed or too overworked to like do some yoga or make a collage or something. So we need to really focus on directing resources towards the people that need support most. I'd like to work with the education officer to like streamline the mitigating circumstances application, because I think this has been something that the kind of education side of mental health and the stress that university workload puts on has been overlooked by the university. I would also like to say that I think there are definitely some things that the university or the union has tried to do like the best job it can. So some of us already mentioned that we know Katie Hughes and the other people who work in the LEU advice team. So I think the caseworkers who are responding to loads of emails are doing a great job, but I think the main issues we face are resources and funding and also visibility. So from working as a peer mentor, I know so many first years aren't aware of the fact that there's an advice team at the union that they can email with any issue they have. Yeah, so that's my answer. Thanks.
Great, thanks guys. So the second question, do you feel that the availability of mental health services matches the current demand for support among students? If not, what more can be done? Holly, do you want to start?
Yeah, I think kind of the available support in wellbeing is a really complex issue. I think there's kind of two parts to it that is relevant to students. So we're talking about awareness and engagement. I think in terms of the awareness of the services that students have available to them is just not there. It's not clear what the services are doing, what they're there for. I feel like a student's awareness of what's available to them depends on how involved they are in the union. If you're walking into the union building and seeing that big advice sign, but if you're not in that physical space, then how are you going to know it's there unless you go if you're looking for it? And then in terms of the actual engagement as a result, we're not seeing that. I think that the advice team are doing the best that they can with what they have, but realistically there are 32,000 plus students on campus, and the number of staff available to support those students doesn't reflect that. And I think that's where we need to start. We need to get kind of capacity up that will help increase, accessibility and availability of support.
Nice, thank you. And Britt.
So when I was speaking to Sophia, she said at the moment the kind of for counselling and the waiting list, they're very under capacity. This is kind of, I think, partially because with things being online, people are kind of less engaged and like less wanting to do it that way. It feels really impersonal to like talk to someone on your computer, especially when it's something about something so personal. But I think although it is under capacity, it doesn't mean that that there's enough resources. I think it means that we're still kind of lacking the support. So that there should be other ways that people can kind of get the mental health support they need without having to just kind of go through links on a computer, especially when we go back to in-person like counselling and things like that. I think there needs to be increase in resources so there isn't any waiting lists, and like so there are like not just the wellbeing kind of group activities. They don't work for everyone, and I think there definitely needs to be more awareness as well about what there is available, because I know that some people wouldn't even know where to look if they were trying to find like counselling or advice or support. So there definitely needs to be increased awareness throughout the uni, maybe like in the introduction lectures or like when you get their induction packs for uni, like just something to say like keep this for reference. This is what you can do. Like, if you need a chat, like, come to this place. Like, there definitely needs to be more awareness, and probably a lot more funding as well to support everyone.
Thank you. And Jess?
Yeah, I massively agree with what's been said. Yeah, I think it can be, from speaking to students in the build up to this, I've heard a lot of people saying I have absolutely no idea what the difference is between the services the university offer and the services the union offer, and it would be great to have that all in one place. And I just think it's just super unclear at the moment. And I think, as I said, like, as part of my manifesto, is to make sure that personal tutors are extensively trained in mental health support so that they can support the students that need it, and not just rely on the wellbeing services across campus to kind of take on all of the students that are struggling. It should be, people should be mass taught on how to look after students. But yeah, as I say, I think it's students struggle to actually understand what support there is available to them and just kind of don't really know where to start. And it can be, and usually students who are suffering almost sometimes just don't want to reach out. They feel like they can't, or it's overwhelming, and it just makes the situation worse. So I think we need to raise loads of awareness about what's available and just increase training with staff on campus for mental health support. But yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And Lottie?
Yeah, I agree with kind of everything that's been said before. I think although that we don't have massive waiting lists at the moment, I think that, like it's been said, that doesn't mean the demand's not there. It just means that we're not reaching students who potentially really need it. And I think in kind of normal times, this idea that the waiting lists are really long and that there's inadequate provision kind of acts as a barrier to students accessing that support. So I think that, like I previously mentioned, the availability of drop-in sessions and being able to speak to someone on the same day is really important. And I think that's something that the advice team can do at the moment, because we're not at massive capacity, but would need a lot more funding that comes from the university to maintain that, going into this period where we might have students coming back to campus, or moving back to Leeds, and being able to speak more freely and come to the union. But I do think an awareness is an issue also, about the sort of diverse range of advice that the team can give. So whether students having problems with their housing or their financial situation. We have a great hardship fund at the moment that I don't think a lot of students know about. And I think one of the barriers to that as well is that students don't feel like hardship applies to them necessarily when they're in financial trouble. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, both in resource, but also in that accessibility and breaking down the barriers to some students as to why they feel like that support is not for them. And I think getting that into halls in the first instance, so that students, when they have their first experience and their first encounter with the university, they know exactly what support is available to them. I think that's crucial in setting them up for the next 3, 4, 5 years of being at Leeds.
Nice, thank you. And Harriet?
So yeah, again, really just to echo a lot of what's been said. I think a big theme that we're all seeing is clarity on services. And personally, like, I ran a session for my peer mentees on where they can get support, and even just researching it, I had to pull sites from all these different parts of the union, like some of it's on the union website, some of it's on the university website, and that was me not even trying to get support, but trying to show people how to get support. So you can imagine how overwhelming and confusing it is for someone who needs help. And I think we need to sort of research on where students get their information from in order to best reach out to them. I think the university just sends out mass emails because that's the easiest thing for them. But for a lot of people, we find information about uni on Facebook groups or just through word of mouth. So we need to think about where we put our information in order to reach students best. On counselling, I think we can definitely extend the number of sessions on offer through more funding and prioritising existing funds. Students usually only get a few sessions, and again, a lot of that can just be sort of signposting to other resources and doesn't get to the bottom of the issue. And lastly, I think we need to ensure we're tailoring our support to different groups of students and really signposting and thinking about which students are most vulnerable. I think a group that doesn't get talked about much is students on industrial placements, because they're physically away from uni, but they are still paying fees to be at uni, effectively like a holding fee, and the only outreach they get is kind of academic support, seeing how they're getting on their placement, even though they're living under quite hard circumstances, you know, often away from their friends or away from Leeds, and working perhaps in a serious job for the first time.
Nice, thank you. Okay, this is the last specific question. How would you support students' physical health and safety after a year which has been so detrimental to both? Holly, do you want to start us off?
Like a lot of the other candidates, I prioritise safety on my candidate statement, specifically mentioning like the work on the Headingley Stadium alleyway and eradicating sexual assault hotspots in Leeds. I think one of the key priorities in kind of physical well-being is making sure that once we're allowed back on campus, once things are starting to open up, that we're getting students in that physical space. I've already said that kind of well-being is not one size fits all. So if your thing is your faith, if it's kind of performance, if it's sport, making sure that things are going back to normal in a way that is accessible for students. I can't speak for everybody, but I've gotten very used to kind of getting up in the morning, having a coffee, and I sit on my laptop and that's it. The thought of having to kind of run across campus from like Roger Stevens to Parkinson's for lectures and stuff is kind of like, how did I ever actually manage that? So I think kind of helping ease students back into it, making sure we're not just chucking everybody back in and expecting things to go back to normal. I think that kind of needs to be the priority. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. And Britt?
So yeah, like I said as part of like my candidate statement, I think that there's going to be a lot of anxiety about going into bigger public spaces and things like that. So I think for like kind of mental and I guess physical purposes as well, it would be good to like make sure that there's still that access that's online for like the educational purposes, but also when people will be moving away from home for the first time, I think it'd be really good to kind of increase like awareness about drug and alcohol use. That is definitely something that's going to impact a lot of people's safety, or even the people going into the second year. They'll kind of be transitioning and they wouldn't have been able to go out yet. So I think there needs to be a lot more awareness about like just general safety around university and nights out and within societies, and like how to kind of make sure that everyone's being looked after. So maybe more training for committee members about keeping sure all their members are safe on like socials and things like that. So I think it's going to be a big transition and that no one's going to be like 100% ready for. So I think it's kind of about making sure that the precautions for people who are drinking for the first time, people who are going out for the first time, making sure that there is awareness about consent, and like just making sure that there's all these things in place so that it kind of is more of a preventative method rather than like kind of reacting to something that's already happened.
Great, thank you. And Jess?
So yeah, I completely agree on what's already been said about safety. Just to add to that as well, I think it'd be great to reintroduce the night bus service that the union used to offer. I'm not sure if it currently offers it, but it was a service that was offered that would take students back to their homes safely when it was dark outside after a day of studying. I think that'd be super important and beneficial to students and make it more accessible. And also when you talk about physical health, I think it'd be great to, like at the start of the year, do free fitness classes. So like yoga, which also ties into well-being, but also is great for your fitness. And just include, free classes for different interests and different abilities, to really kind of boost that physical health, but also improve people's well-being. And yeah, just that's kind of my ideas really.
Well, thank you. And Lottie?
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of echo what everyone said, especially around safety. I think there's a lot of work that can be done there, and I'm really interested in looking at how quickly how students feel, how quickly they can get help when they're in a situation where they don't feel safe on campus, and doing some research around that and looking what we can do, whether that's an app or a different method of how we tackle these issues where students aren't feeling safe and comfortable either on campus or in their own home or in the city, especially as we make a return to nightlife, hopefully, and kind of looking at methods of helping that. I also think it will be really crucial to work with the activities officer and the activities team in the union to get clubs and societies up and running as soon as we can, and looking at ways that we can facilitate everything in maybe in this transition period where it's not completely over the pandemic, but we still want to be able to do as much as possible, and kind of how do we make that easy for students to access, how do students who might be in first year who haven't really experienced societies in the same way, how do we get to them and show them what's on offer? And I think also if we are still in that sort of transition period when it comes to moving into halls, I think there needs to be a really serious planning and really serious think about how cases are managed in halls, or how students' well-being and physical health are managed in halls, because especially in cases where students are having to isolate in really small rooms that aren't fit for purpose, I think that's a big worry. And yeah, we kind of saw a lot of students that really took a hit to their physical health, which isn't really acknowledged when we're talking about COVID as much for young people. And I think that would be a really key thing to focus on, and push the university's health and safety team to really consider what happened last time, and what we can do this time. But hopefully we won't be in that situation when we go back to campus in September.
Great, thank you. And Harriet?
Yeah, again, completely agree with what's been said. I think I'd just like to add that this kind of idea that we can build things back better than we left them before the pandemic. So I definitely want to be quite ambitious in the idea that we're not trying to get things back to normal. We can learn from this, and for example, like I said, by increasing early intervention support, ensuring that we don't have another sort of mental health crisis, and responding to the one that we have. I think it's really important as well to remember that this sort of post-COVID world won't solve things, and that everyone's going to sort of get back into things at a different place, and that's okay. And I really want to have a message from the university and the union to ensure that students understand that. So especially kind of in halls, that not everyone's going to want to go out as soon as they can, and again that's okay. I think in terms of drug, including alcohol use, we need to increase our training in the union so that kind of bartenders and bouncers and people are aware of healthy drug and alcohol use, and also working with societies, again, like people have said, trying to get things back on as soon as possible, but also ensuring that all committees are trained in wellbeing instead of having your go-to welfare societies, so that and also with their socials, that they're not over promoting drug and alcohol use, and they have sort of so-called dry events as well.
Nice, thank you. And this is the last question, so it's a bit more of a fun one. When the current COVID restrictions are over, what is the first thing you would do when you're back in Leeds?
So this one I'm a little bit biased on because it is also my place of work, but I will be having an all-bar potato stack. It will have curly fries as the superior fry on those stacks, and then hopefully it will be a pre-gig snack. I've had concert tickets and gig tickets kind of saved in my back pocket since kind of lockdown started, and I definitely want to get those used.
Nice, thank you. Brett?
I'm just really excited to see everyone that I haven't seen for a year. I'm really excited to do a big social with my rugby team, see everyone that I've not seen for nearly a year now. Yeah, I'm really excited to just see everyone and be able to just have a big catch up with everyone that I've not seen for so long.
Nice, thank you. And Jess?
I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna have to be the pub, isn't it? I literally can't wait to go for a pint, especially at Belgrave Music Hall in Leeds. I love that place. So yeah, head down with my mates and just enjoy a nice drink. Like, hopefully it'll be warm as well, so get up on that terrace. If you haven't been there already, you have to go. It's amazing. If you can, anyway, if we get a chance. But yeah, definitely going for a pint.
Thank you. And Lottie?
Yeah, in a similar vein, I just want to be sat in terrace outside in the sun with my friends. That feeling when everyone comes from their lectures or seminars as the day ends and you sort of all gather and have a drink or some chips or something to end the day. I think that's one of the first things that I'll be looking forward to.
Nice, thank you. And Harriet?
Definitely looking forward to going on a night out again, going to prees and meeting people, bumping into people that I haven't seen in ages, and just, yeah, being able to relax fully and not worrying about where people are standing and who's infecting who and everything.
Brill, thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining me. I wish you the best of luck in all of your campaigns. Just a reminder that voting starts on the 1st of March and we'll be live streaming the results on the 5th.